Okay, hello. So this might probably be this is gonna be my most controversial video so far, and it's not like I've never even posted like a controversial topic, I guess. But I'm actually surprised that I'm doing this. But like I'm genuinely finding out like new information. I didn't start initially thinking about this. It just ended up spiraling into this. And it's crazy. It's very like wow. Like I learned some new things that I'm about to share right now that I'm just like really like I was really surprised because I've never learned this stuff before. So basically this started with me um with this song by Trevor Moore called Help Me, which is a parody of a Justin Bieber song. And at the end of the song, right, there's this line saying, "Help me," or like they say they'll sacrifice me to their god Baphomet. So in the music video, right, it's this little boy gets sold by his parents to a music producer, and then the whole song is like him saying "Help me," and then at the end he's basically saying the music producers are going to sacrifice me to their god Baphomet. And then you see all this shit happening in the Epstein files, right? Okay, mind you, right? Keep that in mind. And so I've heard, Baphomet, right? You've heard it. Oh, over and over. Baphomet, you've seen the goat as above, so below. I even had a shirt. I even had a shirt of it, right? The goat and shit like that. And this whole time, right, I thought like that's like some a demon or something like that. I never knew what it actually was, right? But you just see what it's associated with, and so then in your mind, it's kind of just like, oh, it's like a bad thing. Um, and, it's a Satan thing. It has something to do with Satan, and so then I search it up and I ask, hey, what actually is Baphomet? Where does Baphomet come from? I'm curious. And so the origins of Baphomet, I didn't know this. It has nothing at all historically, has nothing to do with the Bible or demonic activity at all. The creation of Baphomet and the name Baphomet has nothing to do with demons or any of like the satanic things that you would think is associated with Baphomet. The origins of Baphomet had nothing to do with that. So the word Baphomet potentially may they don't really know. Okay, so Baphomet came from so the king of France wanted to pillage the Knights Templar because they had a lot of fucking gold and power. The French king, he wanted that shit. So he was like, what's a good excuse to kill these guys? And basically, the word Baphomet is believed to be a typo of the French king actually meaning to say Maphomet, or something like that. Mahomet, which which means which is referring to Muhammad. So it's saying that Baphomet was a French misspelling of the word Maphomet, which refers to the prophet Muhammad. Basically, the French king wanted to accuse the Knights Templar of secretly becoming Muslim while they were out doing crusades, so that way the French king can go in and then raid all their shit. That's where this is where the word Baphomet supposedly came from. And so during torture, some Templars confessed to worshipping a human head or a cat, but nobody mentioned a goat head back then. And this shit, right, with the Knights Templar was back in the 1300s is when the name Baphomet appeared. Okay, these Knights Templar, these guys were nasty motherfuckers, bro. these guys were low. At first, they were low key some cool guys, and then they started becoming like, yo, sodomy was their thing, bro. They was you do like, okay, they low key had to go, low key, and so now the statue of Baphomet that was created in 1856 by a French occultist. Really? I didn't know that. So this occultist and his little mysticism, right? His above so below. Just doing his mystical fucking representation and shit like that, okay? Baphomet has the star on his forehead. This is where okay, Baphomet isn't even what I'm here to talk about. That was just the intro into how I started talking and how I started learning about these things, right? And so I wanted to learn about the, Baphomet. It's created by a French guy in 1856, the statue. The statue was created with a star on the forehead of Baphomet. Now, me being a curious cat, I was like, well, interesting. I read this stuff, my head put two and two together. A French occultist created a mysticism statue, occultist, mysticism, and he put a star on the forehead of the statue he created. And so then I was like, is this Jewish? What does this have to do with the Kabbalah? What does Baphomet have to do with the Kabbalah? And so then I asked. So was the French guy who created this, influenced by the Kabbalah? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Yes. So, first, I guess I should probably explain what Baphomet is. So, basically, okay, right. This is where the song said they'll sacrifice me to their god Baphomet. Okay, that song lyric created this, okay? They, whoever they is, sacrifice me to their god, Baphomet. Baphomet, the statue, wasn't created until 1856. This Baphomet it has nothing to do, it had nothing to do with gods. It had nothing to do with any spiritual, demonic, angels, nothing to do with that, okay? So this goat Baphomet is based off the Kabbalah. The French occultist who created Baphomet based his creation off the Kabbalah. That's why you have the balance of opposites. You have the as above, so below. You have half man, half woman, half human, half animal, and the fucking dude has wings. He's got wings, he's got boobs, and so there's a flame in between his torch. There's a flame in between his horns that stands for enlightenment. That represents intelligence or light that humans can achieve if they break away from traditional religion. And so that horn, enlightenment, that flame, enlightenment. You got to remember that. These people love enlightenment. These people love to be enlightened. So, again, they sacrifice me to their god Baphomet. So, music producers, my Justin Bieber, this song, it's clearly in my mind. It's like, okay, Baphomet potentially is one of the new gods, if not the main god. But I'm gonna say one of the gods. Baphomet is one of the gods in North America. In the other half of the world, the new god, one of the new gods, if not just the main god, is Baphomet, the statue of worship. So, like, okay, in my mind, the song talks about sacrificing young fucking kids who are doing music, right, in the music industry. Once they're washed up, they get sacrificed to the god Baphomet. What were the Jews doing in the Old Testament? They were burning babies at the altar of Moloch. Now, what if instead of continuing to worship gods of old time, a new one was created? It may not be a different entity, but it's a different name, it's a different statue, it's the same thing. Okay? And so I was like, okay, what if Baphomet is potentially the new god of North America, and that influences how things are potentially being ran? And so then, hold on, let me read this. I also want, so, more information. Okay. In the 80s and 90s, when the satanic panic was happening and everybody was like, oh my God, you got to stay away from Satan and all these things. Again, historically, Baphomet has nothing to do with child sacrifice. However, modern culture during the satanic panic created Baphomet to almost merge into this demonic being, this demonic entity. And right, keep your kids away. Keep your kids away. Keep your kids away. Hold on, let me read this. This shit is old. Because to like the higher power in the world, it's not what, because remember when I said enlightenment, when you think about the Masons, the Freemasons, their whole thing is enlightenment, reaching enlightenment. You're right, it's getting Gnostic wisdom. And what Freemasons are is, it's right, they have these different, degrees. Freemasonry, eventually, the big secret is that you're worshiping Lucifer or the light bringer. In which got you enlightened, right? Lucifer brought light down to earth and then created all this shit that we see, and then now the fucking people worship Lucifer because and so hold on, I gotta refresh. Let me be back with the information. Okay, I'm back. How I was talking about Baphomet potentially being a new god. What is my logic behind that? Baphomet was a statue. Baphomet, the name, came from Knights Templar. 500 years later, a French mysticism. Mind you, it was the French king who fucking killed the Knights Templar. A French occultist created the statue Baphomet based off the Kabbalah, who works with the Kabbalah. It's a Kabbalah is the mystic interpretation of the Torah, which is the Old Testament. And then the Talmud is like annotations. It's just like deeper fucking personal Jewish thoughts, I guess. And so if you were to create a new god and you were moving away from the old gods of the world, which Bible, the Torah, Quran, and your intention is to create a new world order. Okay, a new world order. The most powerful people in the world are either Jewish or involved heavily with Jewish people. More so the Zionists. It's not Jewish people, it's Zionists. And so if you have an intention of creating a new world and you serve one God, the Freemasons worship Lucifer. This statue of Baphomet was created based off the Kabbalah and then erected as this satanic figure to stay away from, when really it's really standing for enlightenment. Now this goat that everybody else thinks has something to do with Satanism and is bad and you shouldn't do anything with it, actually is a representation for the Kabbalah, which if you follow the Kabbalah and you're really into that shit, bro, you're probably got a little bit of a bag, bro. Okay? I don't know a lot about the Kabbalah, but I know that eventually I'm going to learn more about it. Okay? Because probably the most powerful and richest people on earth probably have some knowledge of that shit. That might just be a little hunch. Now, in Bohemian Grove, right, and they burn that effigy to the owl statue, which, it's not Moloch, guys. That's what they say. Guys, we burn an effigy of a child in an owl, and then we play fake screams, but it is not a child sacrifice, guys. It is not a child. Okay. So, Moloch, these fucking people talking about Moloch, and we not doing old gods no more. Your gods are in BCE. This is a new world order. We need something new. Baphomet is new. Is the new god of the new world. This is some reaching territory here. Okay, but look, let me continue this, right? Bohemian Grove. Every year, the most powerful people gather and burn an effigy. And the official word is an owl representing Minerva, which stands for wisdom. Come on, it's Moloch worship, okay, guys? They sacrifice. This is what they call it, and I didn't know this. They call it the cremation of care. Right, the effigy that they're burning, it's the sacrifice of the heart. The idea of this cremation of care, as they call it, is that these leaders burn away their empathy and care for the common person so they can go back to DC or Wall Street and make hard decisions like starting wars or tanking economies without feeling guilty. Okay, that's why they burn that shit. Really? Yeah, really. I almost don't even want to. I'm going to research this up just to see if this is facts. Hold on. Oh my god, yes. Confirmed. Oh my god, that's low-key fucked up. Yeah, it was pretty fucked up. Okay. So, Moloch, man, this dude got this scary ass owl statue that you burn babies on. We don't want that no more. We want Baphomet, the new intellectual balance. It's cool. It's spiritual. It's, you know, got a little institutional vibe to it. That is the move, okay, for these higher power people. Everything ties back into religion. You have to believe in something in order to do these things, okay? And how does statues like these get their worship? It's the Slender Man effect. Like Slender Man. The idea of that enough people believe in it and it becomes real. Enough. When you have a fucking stone statue and you are fucking doing horrible degenerate shit and worshiping it and praying to it, whether it becomes real or not in reality, it becomes real to you. And potentially when you have enough people doing the same thing that you're doing, it might actually spawn something out of just thin air. Or it's just a gateway for something that has already exist to come through in a different form, okay? Names don't matter. Places don't matter. Statues don't matter. The intention behind what you're doing with this said object is what matters when it comes to these sacrificing and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this started with Baphomet. And I've been talking about Baphomet for 22 minutes. I'm sorry for taking so long. Let me get to the point. Well, this point is actually really long. Baphomet has the star on his forehead, right? The star of Judaism, which is, you know, the Star of David, the Shield of David. Now, I got some news. French occultist created Baphomet based off the Kabbalah and smacked the fucking logo right on the forehead. Right there on the fucking forehead. And then sold it to everybody saying it's demonic. Judaism, that star, name somewhere in the whole world that uses that same fucking star. I can't find one. There probably is. I just haven't looked. But when you see the star, you think of Israel. That's what the stars represent. The Star of David. That's what the star is supposed to be, right? And then you put it on the forehead of a goat man based off the Knights Templar that were doing nasty shit. And then you're going to sell it as satanic so that way nobody looks into it more than Satanism. And so the Star of David. Now, this is where the meat and potatoes kind of started coming out, okay? I'm like, why is this statue have the Star of David on it? Well, you know, it has to do with the Kabbalah. The Star of David. Okay. So how come in the Bible, the Star of David is not called the Star of David? It is Star of Remphan. I think Remphan, whatever the fuck it's called. We'll just call him Rem. So David, who they say the star is based off, David didn't do no fucking star, okay? Solomon, his son, King Solomon, which created, you know, the I don't remember the exact book. The fucking demon guy, bro. Everybody and their mother, everybody and their child knew this dude was doing demon shit with his fucking symbols and sigils and shit like that. Solomon was the one who created what is now the Star of David. That star isn't new, though. Jews didn't invent the star. They took it and then they ran with it. The star, this is what is debated. That star is based off the hexagon on Saturn. Remphan is a translation of a Greek word that stands for Saturn. Let me pull that up. Where's that shit at? Okay, hold on. I can't find it. Wait, we'll circle back. We'll circle back to that shit. Okay? So, God called, right? So, let me pull this shit out exactly. The Old Testament. Right? This is 740. This is Acts 7:43. You took along the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, the idols you made to worship. Therefore, I will send you into exile beyond Babylon. And so the hexagram has nothing to do with the King of David, and the star doesn't show up as Jewish symbolism until the star didn't become the Jewish symbol until the 17th century. Before that, it was relatively known as the Seal of Solomon. And this had me thinking. The star as we know it today is told to us as the Star of David. Anybody who has that star on a necklace or a bracelet, it's the Star of David. It's the Star of David. It's the Star of David. It's not, no, bro. It doesn't have anything to do with these other things. It's the Star of David. Okay, it has nothing to do with these mysticisms. They're gonna say. No, it's the Star of David. Okay, it's the Star of David, and not the Star of Remphan. Then how are you gonna denote the swastika? How are you gonna denote the swastika as a bad symbol? If you're gonna say the Star of David is all goody two shoes, a swastika for 5,000 years stood for fucking peace. In India and Tibet, for 5,000 years, the swastika was the symbol for peace. In a decade, it turned sour. So you're going to say the Star of David has nothing to do with the Star of Remphan in today's age. Then the swastika should have absolutely nothing to do with representing genocide. The swastika the original meaning for the swastika stands for peace. Now it stands for Nazi regime. Interesting, really. So the symbol that stands for peace was flipped on its head to represent something evil. But the star that represented evil has now been flipped on its head and sold as the Star of Good. Interesting. That's interesting, really. So, I want to know more about this star. The Star of Remphan. I've heard about it, but actually, what is it? Well, what it is, it's based off fucking Saturn. Saturn, the fucking thing that's responsible for time, limitations, and decay. Oh my god, I just thought of something crazy, bro. Right, so you take the black cube of Saturn, Okay, if you heard of that. Literally the cube, that hexagon, right? People call it a cube. If you take that cube of Saturn and you unfold it, it turns into the cross. It turns into a crucifix. That's something interesting that I just thought about right now. Okay, let me continue going. So I don't know that. The hexagram, right? The star of David, with star of Remphan. Okay, 6 points, 6 triangles, 6 sides of the hexagon, 666. Explain that. Oh, you want to associate Baphomet with the devil and the number 666 with the devil. How interesting. But you want to use it. You want to denote it publicly, but in secrecy you use it. In secrecy, that's where you represent it. Interesting. Hold on, let me see here. Hold on, I'm gonna be right back. Okay, I'm back. The dollar bill has two. This Star of David, and these motherfuckers call it a pentagram. There's two pentagrams on the back of the dollar bill. One with the eagle and the stars, that forms a pentagram. The other side with the letters, when you do a pentagram, it forms the word Mason, like the Freemasons. Okay? So now let me tell you, let me think about this, right? If you're curious and you're like, why is the US so involved with Israel? The dollar bill has the star of Remphan on it, right? The star of Saturn. That's Remphan is another word translated from Greek, which is the word. Where is that? I just had it right here. What? It disappeared on me? I just read it though. What the fuck? Okay. There's also among this, there's also an agenda for a new world order. Okay, that we have to keep that in mind. It might be a little too much to explain right now. The ultimate goal is a new world order, one government, one currency, one bank, one God, one nation. All one thing, okay? That's why you see paper money going away. Everything's going to be digital. Everything's going to be digital. Your entire worth is going to be on screens and numbers. Because it's for control, right? They're trying to control you, okay? There we go. Remphan, the Greek translation is Kiyun, which refers to the planet Saturn. That's where that star came from. They didn't invent it. The Jews didn't invent it. Judaism didn't invent this star, nor did they take it from David. David wasn't even using this star. His son Solomon was. And he was using that to control demons and genies. Demons and genies. This dude was using sigils that he was creating to control demons and genies. Okay? And the Jude and they're using the same star. They're using the same star. They're fucking with your head. They're making you, okay? They're fucking with you. And they're doing it all in front of your face. So in the Bible, Acts 7:43 explicitly links the star of Judaism that they're using to the star of Remphan, which is the star, which is the fucking hexagram on Saturn. And God condemns it. God condemns the worship. And so the public view is it's the holy religious symbol for Israel. But the occult view, Judaism is the cover page. The Old Testament is the cover. The real shit is in the Talmud, and the more real shit is in the Kabbalah. Every one of these motherfuckers, they're mystics, bro. They're mystics. It's not about like your religion. It's about the stars and shit, bro. It really is that, because that's what these motherfuckers are getting into. Okay, it's not about your religious texts and what's in the Old Testament, the New Testament, what's in the Quran. It doesn't matter. These motherfuckers care about the mystic interpretations of what's going on around them. And hold on, fucking brain. Hold on. Let me recover myself about what I'm talking about. So, I think. Wait, am I gonna have to be back? Okay. So let me talk about more of the Star of Remphan and what they were actually doing. So while Moses was doing his thing up on that mountain, okay, they were growing impatient. They couldn't wait for him to come down back that mountain. So these people, right, they had their golden cow and then they started worshiping Moloch. And the Sabbath that they were using, Sabbath, which is now on right now as we see on Sunday, Sabbath was actually performed on Saturday. Saturn Day. This shit is coming from the Greeks. I'm not making this up. Monday through Sunday, that's Greek Roman shit. That's not English shit. That's Roman shit. Monday, Moon Day. Sunday, Sunday. Saturday, Saturn Day. Sabbath originally was taking place on Saturday. Then, I think it was like Constantine or something, right? When Christianity became popular, he switched it, Sabbath, to Sunday to make Christianity easier to sell to the people of Rome. So when you go to church on Sunday for the Sabbath, you're not doing that because that's what was said in the Bible and that's how they created it. No, Sabbath is set on Sunday. On Sunday, when you do your Sabbath. What is Sabbath just means okay, yes. Wait, hold on. Am I tripping? I gotta get my terms right. Okay, no, it's literally in the fucking Bible. Exodus 28:11. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is Sabbath to the Lord your God. Before it was on Sunday, they were doing this shit on Saturday. Then it became popular. Then Sabbath took place on Sunday. Because you're supposed to be worshiping your God, not Saturn. So they switch the days. So you worship the sun. When you participate in Sabbath, right? When you tell yourself, no, today's Sabbath. It's sun worship because the Sabbath is taking place on Sunday. because you're worshiping the sun. Now where does this intertwine here? Hold on. This is a side note right here. Okay, because this is I started, this reaches into Gnosticism. Sunday. This is when I first started learning about Gnosticism and the archons and the demiurge. This is what came to my thought, right? 10 planets in our solar system. Don't forget about Pluto, okay? 10 planets in our solar system, which includes the sun and our planet, right? Let me double check, guys. Yeah. 10 planets. Pluto, okay? You'll see why. Okay? So when you think about Gnosticism, and you think about the demiurge and his archons, and then when you play with the idea of Gnosticism, you're basically, right, playing with the idea that reality as we see it here is a little playground. And so the demiurge, who's this lesser god who demands blood sacrifice, who needs worship, right? He's got this ego bruised. He needs it all, okay? Now, if you were a demiurge and you were to create this planet civilization, right? And these humans to worship you and to fuel you, and you wanted these people to worship you with everything that they had, and you were a demiurge, right? And you wanted to be the most important guy around, and you wanted to say, like, these are planets, okay? What would you be? This is what I think. You would be the sun, and your archons would be the remaining, I guess, 8 planets. I mean, we're the 10th, right? We're one of 9 planets. What does that make Earth? Is Earth an archon? Potentially. I haven't even thought about this. I haven't even played with this, because why does the 10 matter? Because you have the 1 and you have the 0. It's binary. It's 1 and 0, just like in computers. It's 1 0 1 0 1 0. When you separate the 1, you get 9. It's divisible by 3. 3 6 9. What was the shit that Nikola Tesla was on about? 3 6 9, the numbers of the universe, with the sun being the 1 demiurge. Bear with me here. Okay? Bear with me here. Now, this is where it's tying in here, okay? Now I ask, how did the Jews become the chosen people if their star, hold on, this was my question. If it's in the Bible showing and depicted that the Jews for 2,000 years, genuinely, they couldn't keep their hands away from worshiping another idol. They really couldn't help themselves for whatever reason, right? And it's said, right, supposedly right in the Bible, that they are the chosen people. They are the chosen ones that will inherit the land, the Jews. And now I'm like, okay, well, the God that's in the Bible,
as I understood it, the God that's in the Bible, to the Jews, you are the chosen people, and Israel is your land, right? It's not even Israel. It was Jerusalem. Jerusalem. What was Israel back in the day? It was Jerusalem, okay? So I'm like, why would God make their chosen people the one people who couldn't worship him? Why would you create your chosen people to be the one race of people, potentially, that refuse to worship you and you alone? And also, if the Jews are supposedly chosen by the same God, right, that the Christians, worship, then how come they denounce Jesus so much? If you truly believe that you were chosen by God and you condemn Jesus, for what reason? Why in the Talmud would you condemn Jesus to hell, boiling, burning in his own feces for eternity? Why harbor so much hatred to a man that proclaims to represent your God that chose you? Right? They say they don't recognize Jesus as the Son of God. They don't. The same people who worship false idols and condemn Jesus are supposedly the same people that God chose as their chosen people. How does that add up? I don't understand that. I don't. So I asked, why are these people chosen, and why were they promised Jerusalem? Who chose these people? Who made it the choice to say that these people were chosen and that they're owed their land in Jerusalem? It's because the Old Testament says, that's why. It's because the little book that was written so long ago said that's why. The little book, it's the book that said why. Let me write a motherfucking book right now. In 5,000 years, my generation will own the world. How about that? Sign it in blood right now. Right now. I'll see you in my generation will see you in 5,000 years. I'm taking America. America is mine, because God came and visited me in the dream and said, if you sacrifice this, they were sacrificing their children, okay, to Moloch. Now, this is look, hear me out right here. Okay? The demiurge. Okay? Gnosticism. Gnostics are seen almost like the whistleblowers of the old time. Because this is what was happening. Judaism was saying X and they were doing Y. So Judaism is entirely based off the Old Testament. They don't recognize the New Testament. The New Testament came out when they were rolling out the Pope and the Vatican. When they were making the Pope and they were trying to sell Christianity because Jesus got too popular, so they were like, oh, fuck. They created the New Testament to explain all this other shit because they couldn't explain it. They couldn't explain the Old Testament to the millions of new Christians. They had to create something new. They had to create something new. They killed Jesus because he was why did they kill Jesus? Because he was moving people away from what I think it was just had to be Judaism. Now, why was he doing that? Because if you want to look at these things through a Gnostic perspective, the demiurge didn't choose the Jewish people. The Jewish people chose to sacrifice a blood contract with the demiurge. And the demiurge then said, yeah, you can have Jerusalem. And so, what is that blood contract? This is what I thought. This is crazy, okay? What is the blood contract that they do? It's circumcision. They circumcise their child and sacrifice to the demiurge, which ensures their longevity. And instead of sacrificing their child and wasting a life, they mark the body and hold on. They mark the body, which also groups the Jewish people together. The Jewish people are the chosen people. Why are they the chosen people? Because the Jews worked so tirelessly to separate themselves from everybody else. That's why you have kosher. They circumcise them, their babies. They fucking, I don't know what else they do. They have the Kabbalah. They have the Talmud. They have their Torah. Not the Torah. What? Is it the Torah? It might just be the Torah. And Rome. Rome fell because everybody was Roman, which meant nobody was. Why have the Jewish people persevered so long despite being displaced 100 times over and not having a single point of no home base? Is because of the values that they obsessively maintained and traditions they maintained, which made the separation between Jew and Goyim. Because there's that really distinct separation. Because you have to separate God's chosen people and everybody else. So, hold on. Let me pause right here. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, fuck. I'm sorry. I was talking about, right, them being chosen people, okay? Right, now, I remember watching this video. It was a rundown about Gnosticism. Now, how was it described? Basically, on top of Mount Sinai, after leaving Egypt, the Jews posted up on Mount Sinai for a fat minute, and they built the tabernacle for the demiurge. And then the demiurge came down in his little tabernacle and then said, hey, Jerusalem's yours, but you got to do like this thing. they didn't do it, and so then the demiurge was like, fuck you motherfuckers for not listening to me, I fucking hate you guys, and then barred them from Jerusalem and forced them to walk the desert for like 40 years on some shit, like fuck you bitch. And then hella Jews died there when they was wandering around, cursed to wandering the desert for 40 years. And the idea of Gnosticism came from Christians proclaiming that the God of the Old Testament was not the God of the New Testament. And if you want to think about this, it's like, if you're right, Jews are gonna claim that they're the chosen people by God. Okay, by God, or very generic, but okay, by God. And then they condemn Jesus. They worship false idols. The star of Saturn is on their flag. They use mystic teachings, the Kabbalah, and then they have the Talmud, which values does Jude do, what do you say, Christians, Catholics, or Christians, I mean, they both worship the same God, Christians and Catholics. The same God that the Catholics and Christians worship using the New Testament. Would you say that is the same God as that is talked about in the Old Testament? Because why is the New Testament God going to give these privileges to the Jews when the Jews don't listen to God? Why? Because it may or may not be a different God. I mean, they were sacrificing, they were burning their babies to Moloch for payment because they believed that sacrificing their most valuable asset, a child, would receive guaranteed wealth, power, and military victory in return. And serving as blood as a sacrifice to maintain power within the physical world. And so then potentially you look at war. The people who die in the dirt out there in war, sure, they sacrifice the babies and the children and stuff like that. But the soldiers and people who are out there getting killed for whatever they're fighting for, that's the sacrifice to fuel the agenda of that war. The deaths, this is it's a little price to pay for the future, and we'll get back to that when I say that. That's important. The numbers. The people are numbers, bro. The people are numbers. Okay, look. Moving on. Fuck. What else? Okay, what am I gonna... Hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, I see. So Jesus. Why did they hate Jesus? If it was Gnosticism, in Gnosticism, the way Jesus is explained, Jesus is an angel that descended from the monad, which is the true God. So, right, in Gnosticism, you could think about God as this circular thing, this light, this circle of light, perfection. It's perfect. this light. That is the monad, that is God. Within the monad, different angels. This angel Elizabeth, these angels, they have counterparts. They have a male counterpart, a female. Sophia didn't have a male. She tried to reproduce without a male. She tried to self-reproduce. That created the demiurge. The demiurge was imperfect and cast out of the monad. The demiurge, although, he has the powers, but he doesn't have enlightenment. He doesn't have the spark. He doesn't have what the monad has. He's a false god. So in his rage, he creates the world as we see it. After a while, Jesus came down and wanted to teach people the ways of escaping of which they were in. The Jews who worship the demiurge couldn't allow for this to happen, and so they killed Jesus. It's basically Jesus was a very important person. Okay, very important person. Jesus existed. I mean, I'm kind of venturing. To be honest, right now, I'm kind of like, oh fuck, Jesus was like probably like 90%, maybe that motherfucker was probably real. Okay, and so they killed him. He returned back, and now it's like in Gnosticism, the idea is that you get enlightened. Remember enlightenment, and Baphomet and the flame that's in between his horns that stands for enlightenment. In Gnosticism, in order to escape, you have to achieve Gnosticism. You achieve I think Gnosticism. This is what it's called. It just stands for knowledge. You achieve knowledge, you achieve enlightenment, and then your soul is able to depart from the physical reality, and then you have to go past the archons and not return back to earth, and then you can return back to the monad where everything is perfect, and then that's just like the ultimate goal, because you are a spark of divine presence that was created after the demiurge created this. And so potentially through enlightenment, you have the opportunity to leave this world and return to the monad. That's Gnosticism, okay? And this was happening back when Christianity was becoming a thing. These people were looking at the Jews in the Old Testament, and they were like, wait, something doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up. What is that? And Gnostic texts were fucking eviscerated from history. Eviscerated from history. Now moving on. Okay. As we continue down. And back to Sabbath. Sabbath was always on Saturday. And the shift didn't happen till Sunday, until 321 AD, when Constantine rebranded the day to honor the sun god, which made Christianity easier to sell to the Roman public. Most Christians today are unknowingly following a Roman sun worship schedule while thinking you are worshiping the New Testament God. They took the worshiping of Saturn that was taking place on Saturday, and this dude moved it one more day to Sunday. And now every Sunday when you go to church for the Sabbath, for God's day that he chose for you to rest, it's not for the reasons. You might think
right? Because your intention is different, but you don't actually know what you're doing. You're just doing it because everybody else is doing it, not because you found out why you're doing it. Now, hear me out right here. Because I haven't even started talking about the shit that really got me interested. Oops, I haven't even talked about the shit that got me interested. This is a little theory that I've heard before on the TikTok, in the little edits. America, the United States of America as the new Rome. The Roman Empire never fell. It was simply translated to a new world power. Baphomet, star. Where did the star come from? Okay, Remphan translates to the fucking the Greek word for Saturn. Jews were worshiping on Saturn Day. They took the same schedule from the Romans. The Romans thought the Jews were worshiping Saturn. The Romans back in the day thought themselves Jews to be worshiping Saturn, not God. Now, Roman Greek architecture, the Roman Pantheon. Tell me, I don't remember the exact building. In DC, bro, look at the fucking buildings that they made. Look at the buildings that they made. There's literally on the roof of one of these buildings, in this dome, there is a painting of all the gods in the Roman Pantheon with George Washington sitting with them in his Masonic outfit. I think it's his Masonic outfit. But it's George Washington sitting with the gods of the Roman Pantheon in Washington, D.C., in the United States of America, which is supposed to be a Christian country. It's not. It's not a Christian country. The dollar bill has the star of Saturn on the back of it. It has 2 stars. And it says Mason on the back. What do Freemasons look for? Enlightenment. What does Baphomet represent? Enlightenment. So, this is what I didn't know. The wall behind the podium in the House of Representatives, there are 2 giant bundle of sticks with an axe. This was the Roman symbol of imperial power and the root of the word fascism. Senate was called the ruling body of Rome. Thomas Jefferson wanted the Capitol to be a spherical temple modeled after the Roman Pantheon. These buildings are their own little pyramids. It's their own little pyramids. Okay? The Native Americans built a fuck ton of pyramids, bro. A fuck ton of pyramids everywhere. It was everywhere, bro. Crazy. I don't even want to talk. I'm not even going to get into the Native American history right now, bro. But fuck, I didn't even know what they was on, bro. Yeah, that's some real history about the fucking Native Americans, bro. Look. Judaism, as a contract with Saturn, a contract with the demiurge, to ensure suffering of the world. The demiurge loves the suffering.
If you ever wondered why children are born poor and starving and dying off the rip immediately, it's because the dude is laughing at it. The demiurge loves it. Suffering, loving it. He loves it, okay? It's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be ironic. You're supposed to be hurting. You're supposed to be in pain. You're supposed to be sad. You're supposed to be mad. All of these things are what feeds him. He's an imperfect God, and he needs this suffering in order for him to, receive sustenance. Okay? So the Jews created a contract with the demiurge, ensuring that they would get Jerusalem by blood sacrificing. I don't know what they do to their daughters. I haven't asked. I'm going to actually ask right now. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to ask that. Okay, I'm back. They never do shit to their daughters. That's just that. Yeah. Okay. Another thing. Remember, don't believe me about the Romans and Saturn and children sacrificing. Kronos, Saturn, ate his children so that they wouldn't grow powerful and overthrow him. Kronos, based on Saturn, ate his children. Okay? America is the number one power in the world. Rome was the number one power in the world. Who was doing it like the Romans was doing it? No one. If the Jews had influence from the Romans and Greeks, and it seems that the United States of America is influenced by Judaism and the Romans, I mean, it kind of makes you think, who is in control then? If this is primarily a Christian, it's supposed to be a Christian country, but the people involved are not Christian, then what country are we in? And with everything in the Epstein files, with everything in Gaza, all the questions about America being involved with Israel more than it should be, far more than it should be, it may be because Israel's had a direct influence on the creation of America, which led to America being created as it did, with the intention of a new world order. One government, one bank, one currency, one God, one nation, one God, the demiurge, or perhaps it's even Lucifer. Perhaps they're even the same thing. And so I'm talking about these, the religious, the religious implications, saying the United States of America is potentially a new Rome, saying that Israel directly influences America based off, just history. When it comes to religion and their little special clubs with their Baphomet or whatever. And so this is just essentially the cover story. Well, not the cover. This is essentially an explanation for what I'm about to talk about right now.
And I think I'm about to talk about it right now. And oh, okay. Manifest Destiny. Now, what did they say? Now, what did the Americans say when they were raiding and killing everybody on American land? You know, they called the Manifest Destiny. God told us to take this land. God told us God had chosen America just as he chosen Jerusalem for the Jews. He chose America just for the Americans. Oh my goodness. And we must spread democracy across the continent. Just as God has chosen the Jews to inherit the land of Jerusalem, God also chose it for the fates of the founding fathers to colonize America. And it just so happens that America uses Roman Greek architecture, shows Roman religious fucking religion shit. I don't know, the religion that they were doing in the fucking Rome. And they also have pentagrams on the back of the dollar bill. And they have their shit going on with the Illuminati and shit. Okay, yeah, like that's not weird at all. This isn't weird at all, guys. This is actually completely normal to have back on the dollar bill. It's completely normal to always be watching you. The money is always watching you because the money is your new god. The money is your god now. Ignore everything else. The money is your god now. So I think I've given enough potential information. Now I'm just going towards I think hold on, I'm gonna be back, and then I'm gonna see if I continue on this or if we're jumping on to the next one. Okay, so I'm back. Earlier I talked about Jews lasted so long, Rome fell apart, nations fall apart. Jews have been kicked out of fucking everywhere, and yet they still remain. And now in today's age, they are one of the most powerful groups, most powerful racial groups. Why did these people last 4,000 years? Through a strict set of rules. An absolute strict set of rules. Only the Jews do it. Only the Jews do it. And so you create this identity within, your group, right? You're a Jew, you're with other Jews. And so when you do these, it's blood contracts, but it's not a blood contract, right? And you do this worshiping, this prayer, it brings you together because nobody else is doing it like you're doing it, right? Because the Jews are God's chosen people, and you're chosen because you continue to do the traditions that you were doing fucking 3,000 years ago. And hey, you fucking push through. That's why they're Jews, okay? Actually, I'm curious of what made. I think I asked this question before, but I forgot the answer. Of what makes a Jew a Jew? I'm actually going to search that up. So let's see here. What makes a Jew a Jew? It's apparent, right? It just comes from their mother.
So right, if your mother is Jewish, then you're 100% Jewish. But how do you know the mother is Jewish? Okay, so I didn't know that. So the Jews are very ruly. They're really all about the rules, okay? 613 specific rules governing everything from what you eat to how you tie your shoes. These rules weren't designed to make people good. They were designed to make people different. If you can't eat at a non-Jew's house, kosher, and you can't work on their schedule. Okay, I see why. For some reason, people hated Jews, bro. I don't know why. They hated these people, bro. They wanted nothing to do with them. Because a Jew can't eat at a non-Jew's house. Or, well, right, it says here. Let me read this paragraph. These rules weren't designed to make people good. They were designed to make people different. If you can't eat at a non-Jew's house, kosher, and you can't work on their schedule, Sabbath, you are forced to only do business and socialize with your own kind. This creates the sticking together. Why were Jews getting into banks and shit like that? Christianity barred people from charging interest. So that fell back on the Jews. That's how. Because the people hated Jews so much, they said, man, fuck off and go do your fucking interest bullshit. And it ended up fucking them in the ass. Because now the Jews are in control of the money. And so, hold on. Okay, I see Zionist. So Zionist is a political identity. You don't have to be Jewish to be Zionist. Many politicians are. But a Zionist means you are committed to the spot on the map, which is Israel, as headquarters. Okay, that is the HQ. When you're a Zionist, Israel is home base. Okay, that is where everything's at. That is the promised land. Okay, and so let me go back. Let me go up here. Let me get to the little meat and potatoes, okay? What the fuck? I just had it. Okay. So now, okay, we've reached what may in fact potentially be my controversial takes here. Very well might be after an hour and 23 minutes. Now, I've been talking about Jews this whole time. You may or may not have thought about where I'm going to go talking about the Jews. When you talk about the Jews, you end up talking about Hitler. And now, I started asking questions. I got a little curious. I became a little curious critter. And so, the Jews were pushed to defaulting on doing, money, business, loans, interest. Jews got into the banking system, banks. Bank came from, it's, I don't remember what word it is and what language it is. Bank comes from the word for bench, in which Jews were forced to work on benches to do their banking financial jobs. They were sitting on benches to do this. That benches turned into the word banks. The Jews came into control over the banks because nobody let them do anything else for whatever reason. And so that's how they got heavily involved into the banking system. And so now we flash forward to Hitler, right? And how we're told that Hitler killed all these fucking people because he just didn't like them. This is where things start getting a little interesting. This is the meat and potatoes here. Hitler, the meat and potatoes. Okay? This is real. Everything that I've said in this video, you can search it up. You can fact check it. Everything that I will say in the future, right? Later in this video and everything that I say before. None of this is made up. And you can go search it up and find out for yourself of what I'm talking about. And you'll be like, this is kind of crazy. This is the most craziest shit I'm talking about, bro. It's not even the past shit. And this is crazy. This is history. This is recent history. Hitler. Okay? So. Okay. Bro, it's fucking 1 a.m, bro. I've been talking about this shit for an hour and a half. But we're not even done. So, what the fuck is this? So basically, Hitler wanted to create his own private nation. Right? He wanted to be big dog. His problem, the banks, the international banks. Who's controlling the banks? The Jewish people are. You can't be a world, power, right? You can't dominate the world and have decentralized banks. And so Hitler's motivation in killing the Jews came from, a few things, right? He wanted to create his own, new world power, which required him to not rely on these banks that are, being ran by Jews. And so the genocide of the Jewish population is more meaty than I originally thought. So, get this. In 1917, during World War I, Britain was going bankrupt. And they promised 3 different powers
that they'd give Palestine to them. In 1917, Britain needed control of this fucking river. It was basically Britain needed to make sure they don't lose their trading with India. That's what they cared about. Britain reached out to Rockefeller and told, "Hey, if you get America to back us, we'll give you that Palestinian land." Next thing you know, the U.S. is in the war against Germany. Germany loses. And that Palestinian state is now, I don't remember the exact. Let's see here. It was what exactly was it called? Fuck, where is it? Okay, so all right. Here we are. So Ronald Storrs, the first British governor of Jerusalem, famously said the goal was to create a little loyal Jewish Ulster in a sea of potentially hostile Arabism. The deal was that by backing the Zionists, the British got a European-minded population that would depend on the British military for protection, which ensured the British would always have an excuse to be near the Suez Canal, which was important for trade in India. Okay? 1917, British didn't give a fuck about the Bible, okay? They cared about India. Okay, Suez Canal in Egypt. A lot of fighting here because the Ottoman Empire was occupying all that shit back in the 1917, okay? The Ottoman Empire was still some big motherfuckers. Okay, Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Turks were backed by the Germans. Okay, and they actually managed to cross the Sinai Desert and attack the canal in 1915. Okay, 1917, British realized they couldn't hold it, and they needed a buffer zone. That buffer zone was Palestine. British reached out to Rockefeller. Well, they actually reached out to the Arabs, the French, and the Rothschild, saying to all three of them, saying, "Hey, we'll split Palestine." And so the UK asked Rothschild to get the US in and you can go ahead and load up in Palestine. And that's exactly what they did. So now the British and Zionists used each other, right? The British used the Zionists to get the US into the war, and the Zionists used the British to get the legal deed of the land for Palestine. Palestinians were living there for 1,300 years, and Britain was kind of just like, hey, I actually didn't dive more into this deal, so I don't know much about it. So it was called the Balfour Declaration. Britain was losing the war. They needed money. They were out of money. They were out of men. Sent a letter to Walter Rothschild, head of the banking family, and said, if this is basically what they said, okay? One more time. Lord Balfour, okay? The main guy of the UK getting his ass whooped by the Ottomans, which are backed by the Germans, bankrupt, nothing. Reached out to the Rockefeller, said, please get the United States into the war right now. We need him. We're gonna die. We need the US. And in exchange, we will support the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. Britain is getting their fucking ass kicked. They reach out to Rockefeller. Say, hey, I know you guys really want your Holy Land. We will support the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine in 1917, only because they're getting their fucking ass whooped. Palestinians were living, which are just Arabs, were living in Palestine for 1,300 years before Jews came. That was 1917. Now, in 1933, the boycott of German goods by Jewish people. Jewish organizations in the US and UK declared an economic war on Germany. Nazis were starting to become a thing. Okay, 1933. Jews boycotting German goods, wanting to make them broke. Okay. This is some real shit right here. Okay. 1933, the boycott of German goods by Jewish people. Remember, these people are displaced everywhere. Everywhere. UK said they will support an establishment of a Jewish home, okay? Which is situated in Palestine, right? They won the World War I. World War II is coming around the corner. Germany broke as fuck. They lost the war. They need the money. Who's in control? The banks. Okay, the banks are Jewish. Their goods are currently being boycotted. 1933. The anti-Nazi war. This is what happens. Because Jewish people are displaced, they have Zionist organizations, right, that are in support for, the Jewish community. Here's what happened. The Jewish families who were living in Germany at the time were beginning to see the writing on the wall. Things were going to continue to get worse and worse for Jews inside of Germany. And the last thing the boycott that was happening, bankrupting the Nazi regime. And And this is what happened. The Jews inside of Germany knew that if the boycott were to continue and Germany were to be bankrupt, it would be total war. It would be total war zone. And they would get caught up right in the middle of that. And so, while the global boycott for Jews in the US and UK were boycotting German goods, the Zionist Federation of Germany, right, which represented the Jews of Germany, signed the Havara Agreement with Hitler. The Zionist Federation of Germany signed the Havara Agreement with Hitler, with Adolf Hitler, prior to the war. It's about 5 years before the war. Nuremberg laws were coming in place. Okay? Jews can't be doctors, lawyers, or own businesses. If you were wealthy, you were starting to see your bank accounts being frozen. Your status was disappearing in Germany. This was the Havara Agreement. This is where shit gets serious now. Beyond the mystical shit. This is the Havara Agreement that was signed in 1933. This is the agreement they signed. I know, okay. If you were a Jew, or a Jewish family, and you had at least 1,000 euros, you would be allowed to sell your German assets and buy German equipment that would then be shipped to Palestine. And you would leave to Palestine. Because now you have that support that was signed in 1917. 60,000 Jewish families cashed in what they had and fled to Palestine. The Zionist Federation, what the fuck are they called? The Zionist Federation of Germany signed the Havara Agreement stating that if you had at least 1,000 euros, you would be allowed to sell your German assets, buy a fucking German tractor, and move to Palestine. Everybody else stayed in Germany. That was the agreement. The wealthy Jews fled Germany. 60,000 fled to Palestine and left 6 million Jews to be exterminated in camps. Gassing started happening about 41. This was signed in 33. Where laws were, things were ramping up for Jewish people in Germany. 60,000 of the wealthiest, 1,000 is the minimum. You had that, you went to Palestine. You didn't have that, you stayed in Germany. Okay? So, engineers, doctors, architects, you had the money, you were allowed to leave. And so, hold on. This is... So, just think about that while I find this other shit. That 60,000 Jewish families escaped from Germany, signing an agreement that was only for them, which allowed them to escape. And remember, the goals for the Jewish people is to obtain the Holy Land, right? To go back to Jerusalem, right? That's their fucking goal. Okay, their fucking 3,000-year-old Saturn contract. And now, this is something very interesting. In 1917, UK said we will back a Jewish state in Palestine. Right, we will support a Jewish home, right? A Jewish home in Palestine. 1933, things are starting to get a lot more fucking racist in Germany. 60,000 of the most wealthy Jewish families living in Germany cashed their checks and fled to Palestine with German equipment to make a new fucking life, basically. And then this is what really surprised me. Is that in 1938, the Evian Conference, which lasted 9 days, 32 countries met to discuss the Jewish refugee crisis. 1933, 32 countries, the entire fucking world met for 9 days to discuss what they were going to do with Jewish refugees, because there is not a singular place in the fucking world where Jews can go. Nowhere. They're all displaced all over. And so this isn't talked about. In 1938, every country in the fucking world practically gave Hitler the green light to exterminate Jews. The Evian Conference was about who are we going to take the Jewish refugees? Who's going to take the Jewish refugees? Every single country hold on, what the fuck? Hold on. God, I'm talking so fucking much, bro. I just had this shit. What the fuck? I literally just had this. Bro, what? So... Bruh. Hold on, just like... I don't know, you can like disassociate for the little bit that I'm looking for, what I'm looking for. Okay. This is a point of the war of World War II that needs to be important and fucking labeled. Nobody went to war to save the Jews. That was the story told after the war. during World War II and the genocide of 6 million Jews, 60,000 families kind of knew, they didn't know exactly, they saw the writing on the wall. Shit was going to get worse. Even if Germany went bankrupt. They fled to Palestine, ditching the remaining Jews, okay, because only the wealthiest made the fucking cut, okay, which was just €1,000, which is about 5,000 in today's age. That was money back then, bro. Okay. And in 1938, "32 countries met at a luxury hotel in France to discuss the refugee problem. Hitler watched this conference close.
Like this. Like this. He was watching it like this, bro.
Hitler was watching that meeting. Took place over 9 days. This is what Hitler said. Hitler publicly said this. If these other countries are so heartbroken over the Jews being displaced, I'll put them all on luxury ships and send them over for free. This was Hitler's stance. If the other countries wanted to take the Jews, he would round all the Jews he possibly can and he would ship them out in luxury ships and ship them out just to get them the fuck out for free. Now get this. This conference lasted 9 days. 32 countries. And the only country, one country out of 32, stepped up and allowed 100,000 refugees. Allowed 100,000 Jewish refugees. That was the Dominican Republic. 32 countries over 9 days, and only one of them allowed 100,000 Jews to move in. And this guy was a dictator. And why did he kind of allow it? It's because he wanted to whiten up his community. He wanted to get shit a little wider. That's why he took 100,000 Jews. One by one, over 9 days, 32 countries rejected any amount of Jews to be allowed in their country as refugees. The United States said they were at their quota and couldn't take more due to the Great Depression. Australia said, as we have no racial problem, we are not wanting to import one. Britain, even though in 1917 they signed that deal saying they'll support, Britain refused to let the Jews in Palestine because they didn't want to upset the local Arab population. This was in 1938. In 1933, 60,000 Jews moved to Palestine because they paid Hitler to get the fuck out. That's why. They signed it with Hitler to get the fuck out, leaving everybody else. They knew what was up. They didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but they knew what was up. And get this out. This is what Canada said, bro. Canada, I had to double take this. Canada, the nice country, the nice people in Canada. This is what they said. None is too many. Right? When I first heard that, like, oh, none is too many. No number is too many. Keep them. Like, yes, yes. No. Canada literally meant having no Jews in Canada is too many. None is too many. 32 countries over 9 days said we don't want them. Isn't that fucking nuts, bro? 32 countries in 1938 over 9 days, one by one, each said we don't want them. Each giving their own excuse for why they don't want the Jews there. 1938. $900 Jews sailed on a boat from Cuba to Florida, and the U.S. Coast Guard shot warning shots at that ship filled with 900 Jews to turn the fuck around. We don't want you. The U.S. Coast Guard fired warning shots at 900 Jewish refugees on a ship from Cuba to Florida, and forced the ship to turn around before it even hit the coastline. World War II wasn't about saving Jews. World War II wasn't fought because of the genocide that was going on. That was the story told after the fact. Nobody gave a fuck. In 1938, not a single country gave a fuck about the Jewish population. They all said, we don't fucking want them. When that ship got rejected from the U.S., the newspaper devoured. And after that meeting, the German media devoured fucking Jews, bro. This is what they said something like, even the land of the free has its limits. Even the land of the free has its limits. $900 Jews turned away Florida, shot warning shots at by the U.S. Coast Guard. 9 days. One country took 100,000 Jews because he was a dictator and he wanted them to mate with his black people, so that way the black people could be more wider. A wider population. And so, here's one more thing, too. All of these people who said no Jews were also anti-Semitic. They hated these people, bro. They hated these people, bro. It's like, I don't know why. These people, right? If the Depression, everybody was in the Depression after World War I. Countries were scared of Jews.
right, of immigrants taking jobs. A fact is that many leaders in the US and UK State Departments were openly anti-Semitic. People were anti-Semitic. They didn't want anything to do with the Jewish population. They didn't want them. And so 4 months later, after the Evian Convention, was the first attack, was the first riot against the Jewish population in Germany. 4 months after that meeting, with 32 countries, the entire world, without saying it, told Hitler, we don't fucking want them, so do whatever the fuck you want. Nobody's gonna take them. If they would have taken them, Hitler would have sent them out for free because he didn't want them. And now bro, 32 countries were playing a hot potato with millions of Jewish lives. Literally. You take them. No, you take them. I don't want them. No, you take them. No, you take them. I don't want them. And so after the Evian conference, Hitler used this failure of the conference to prove to the German people that his, anti-Semitism was just normal. Because that's what everybody got from this fucking meeting, bro. That's what everybody got from this meeting. Nobody wanted anything to do with the Jews. Why did Hitler want to get rid of the Jews? Because he wanted to get rid of the banking system. He couldn't have the banking system in the goal that he wanted to, so he has to get rid of the Jews. And so in 1938, this is facts. In 1938, Hitler allowed the MS St. Louis with 900 Jews to sail to Florida. The U.S. Coast Guard fired a warning shot to keep them away from the Miami coast. Hitler's media had a field day. Even the land of the free has its limits. And so in Hitler's mind, every country in the world gave him the green light to do whatever he wanted to do. And so that's exactly what he did. None of the countries went to war for the Jews. No country on earth entered World War II with the idea of having Jewish people's interest. At all. Not at all. This was not about the Jewish population. In fact, these countries, they didn't give a fuck. They didn't give a fuck what Hitler was doing to the Jews. That is the reality. None of these countries cared what Hitler was doing. This is what Hitler was doing that they had a problem with. These are the rules that he was breaking, okay? He broke a few rules. One rule: you don't colonize white people. Fucking UK, France, and the US were busy colonizing Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Hitler's problem is that he was trying to treat Europeans like they were third world colonies. They didn't like that. You don't colonize white people. That was his first mistake. Second, Hitler fucked with the banks. The banks, he thought that by getting rid of the Jews, he was going to get rid of the banks, which would have worked if he had gone after the UK instead of Russia. If Hitler didn't attack Russia and went full balls on the UK, he would have gotten rid of the banks. As we know it today, there would be no international decentralized banks as we know today. If Hitler didn't fuck with Russia and didn't fuck with China, Hitler would own the land from the borders of Moscow to the beaches of fucking UK. And the power would be different, totally different than what it is, to say the least. And so Hitler kicked out the international bankers. This is the biggest no-no you can possibly do in the history of anything that you could possibly do. If you want to get assassinated as quickly as possible, you make your own currency. Hitler created the MEFO bills, which was German currency issued out with no interest. You don't do that. Money, as we know it, God, this is just a lecture. Money is debt. Money is debt. All money that is in circulation is being used to pay back the debt. Napoleon didn't want to get indebted to the banks. That's why he sold all his land in America, because he owned the fucking middle of America. He sold it to pay for his war. He ran out of money. So he started to print his own currency backed by himself, not backed by the banks. The banks always fund both. The banks have been funding both sides of every single war since the French Revolution. Napoleon tried to use his own currency. The banks didn't like that, so they funded both sides, and fucking Napoleon got fucked. Napoleon would have won, and Napoleon would have done what Napoleon did if he didn't try to make his own currency. You don't do that in the world. Out of the things that you don't do, you do not make your own currency. You will die fast. And the third mistake was he tried to take the whole board. When it comes to geopolitics, you're allowed to have a little piece or two of the land. You're allowed to have your little chunk of change. It ain't no thing. Ain't nothing wrong with it. But he wanted to take the whole fucking thing. And you get fucked by everybody else. In Hitler's mind, Hitler believed he was the hero, believing that the Jews had a shadow contract. Like, they're in the banks. They're plotting to destroy Germany. Because the Jews were boycotting German goods until the Zionist Federation of Germany signed the Havana Agreement, the Havara Agreement, which reversed the boycotting of German goods. And also, because Hitler created his own currency, that's how Germany was able to fucking do what Germany did in World War II. He created his own money, got Germany out of its fucking debt with World War I, because he's also killing all these fucking Jews until it eventually bit him in his ass. His currency that he was producing was actually fine. It was working, but he went for Russia. He should have went for the UK. So basically, Hitler had 32 countries say, we don't want the Jews and we don't give a fuck. Hitler went and started killing all these fucking Jews. Shit happened. America got involved. It's a wraps from there. And mind you, America did not want to get involved. America was straight up on their isolation, bro. And then Pearl Harbor happened. Whether it was let happened or, who knows, right? So basically, after Germany was defeated, 6 million Jews dead. Now everybody's feeling guilty. So now Israel is created. A place for the Jews to go. First deal signed in 1917. 60,000 of the most wealthiest Jewish families within Germany fled to Palestine. In 1938, 32 countries got together and decided that nobody was going to take any Jewish refugee. Germany started executing and genociding the Jewish population. Now, fucking God, I'm so fucking tired, bro. I can't believe this shit is 2 hours and 17 minutes, dude. So 60,000 families got set up in Palestine. After the genocide of Jews, all Jews worldwide fled to Israel. And now we live in a time where if you are not, I think that if you are not a Zionist, then you are anti-Semitic. Um, hmm. Okay, where do I go from here? What is the whole point of this video? Which started like 4 hours ago. It started with Baphomet. Understanding why Trevor Moore included that line in his last song. Connecting Baphomet to Jewish mysticism, and then finding out that in 1938, 32 countries refused to accept any Jewish refugees. World War II started. Nobody gave a fuck about the Jews being killed, and people knew the only reason why Germany ended that way is because they fucked with the money. Well, they fucked with the money and then they went about it wrong. And now Israel is this super state. You know, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews. And people will fight that 6 million Jews, it didn't even happen, it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Over 20 million Soviet citizens died within the same amount of time. Six million Jews died. Stalin starving people to death. Dead. Millions. Tens of millions. Dead. Japan and the Nanking Massacre. 10 to 20 million. Dead. Ukraine. 4 to 7 million. Dead. And a couple more places. 6 million Jews. Close to 80 million people died, including the Jews, died within the same time the genocide of the Jews were created. You only hear about 6 million in the war, and then how many people died during the war. But the main thing is the Holocaust, the Holocaust, the Holocaust, the Holocaust, the Holocaust, the Holocaust. It's never talked about why what led to this happening. What led to the Holocaust is 32 countries saying we don't fucking want them. After the war, everybody wanted to be like, oh, shit. Oh, wow. The least we can do is give you Israel. That's, we can do that for you. But, bro, that hasn't changed anything. Do you think that the people who, the world leaders who were anti-Semitic prior to World War II are any less anti-Semitic now? if basically Israel's got to have nukes. Israel have to have nuclear weapons. Because the day the US stops backing Israel, Israel will be blacked out with fucking cruise missiles from every country and their mother. Israel would be isolated and fucking bombed to oblivion if the United States of America was not backing Israel. Not a single country in the fucking world, including the United States of America, is pro-Jew. They don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to say it. So you want to switch up almost. So you want to switch up maybe 100 years later. 1938. It's 2026. About 90 years, about 80, 90 years. You think people are any less racist to black people? Slavery, long time ago. Still happening. Shit ain't changed. Shit has not changed. So why is this? It's just America, bro. Nobody else is supporting Israel. Nobody. It's just the United States. It's just the United States. And if Israel doesn't have a nuke, here's what I think. Even with America backing Israel, if it were to be leaked that Israel had no nuclear weapons whatsoever and they were just bluffing the whole time, they would probably get fucking raided. Israel is trying to hold everybody by the balls, saying if you want to invade us, we will bomb everybody and you will die, okay? If you raid us, then I'm going to set the nukes off. Mutually assured destruction. Now, why would you need that? Why would you need that as an option? Fuck. Bro, I think I'm done. I think I'm done, to be honest. This is what I learned today. That potentially Baphomet is the new god of the new world. Everybody is anti-Semitic. Every country is anti-Semitic. Nobody wanted to take the Jews. Hitler would have shipped the Jews out. But nobody wanted to take them. Hitler wanted to ship the Jews out for free. Hitler wanted to ship the Jews out for free. But not a single country besides the Congo offered. Not one Jew. Not one. So he went and fucking killed them. If you are Germany and you just had 31 out of 32 countries say they don't want to take refugees, and your whole thing is getting rid of the Jews, and you can't ship them out, then what are you going to do? You're going to fucking kill them. Why? Because 31 countries said We don't care. We are too busy worrying about ourselves because everybody just got fucked after World War I. World War II was never about the Holocaust. World War II was never about being anti-Semitic or being a Zionist. World War II had nothing to do with the Jewish population. Why? Because nobody cared about the Jewish population. And so now after the war, because Hitler got a little too arrogant, he ended up solidifying the Jewish population by creating this guilt of 6 million Jews. Maybe people forget about the 60, 70 other million people that died. Isn't that interesting? 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews. What about the other 60 million people? What about those people? Does it not matter? The Nazi doctors that were doing fucked up shit to Jewish people, and then the same fucked up scientists from Unit 731, and they sold that information to the United States for immunity. Don't forget about that. The world is a much more darker place than can be imagined. Things are not what they seem, and they are not as they are told to you. So, it's 2:17 a.m. I've been talking about this for 2 hours. Holy shit. I might as well get this bitch to 2 minutes and 30. Fuck it. So yeah, bro. This is all shit that I learned about today. And I just fucking hopped on the channel and talked about it, bro. I never thought I would talk about Hitler. I'm not glorifying him or anything. But this is what happened, and I think it's crazy. I think so. And there's more. There's more. I don't even know what I'm going to title this. No clue what I'm going to title this. I spent the first half of this video talking about Baphomet, Gnosticism, religious shit. And then I spent the second half talking about World War II and how the world can fucking forsake Jews. Nobody knew what Germany was going to do, okay? But even when Germany was doing it, nobody went to war over the Holocaust, okay? Nobody went to war because Hitler was killing Jews. That wasn't the reason. They went to war because the banks didn't like what Hitler was doing. And Hitler decided to bite more than he could chew. Not because 6 million Jews died. 6 million Jews dying was the perfect excuse to get into Israel. The perfect excuse to retrieve the Holy Land. And now here in 2026, riding that guilt, they're the most powerful people. They say, don't forget 6 million. I say, don't forget the 80 million. Thank you for watching. That is it. Goodbye.